Did Ojukwu cause any war? Ojukwu went and negotiated restructuring with you. In Aburi, you came back. Britain told you not to agree because Britain realized that all the component units of Britain knows that if you go back to regionalism, you have economic growth. The country will do very well.
You see, once you are not Hausa, you are not Yoruba. You are Igbo. That is how they see you. To the Hausa Igbo. So the earlier Niger Delta understands this truth and joins the Igbos to cry for a division, the better it will be for us. Because one day you go fall, enter their hand. You go explain tire. And
make I do releasing Nadikalo. He no do anything. Bumi de free, they carry escort to the Waka.
Nigeria fought a brutal civil war to keep the country one. But the same man who led that war, he helped break another country apart.
The war aim of Biafra is purely to prevent ourselves being slaughtered, nothing more.
Yes, I told you guys that the Niger Deltas, the Ijaws, the Ishekiris and the other people that knows that they with Igbos are the same. Some of them, many of them in short these days with what is happening in Nigeria, they are strongly behind the Biafrans, Biafra agitation. Because no more yes, they have seen that there is no future with what is happening. That even how tribalistic Nigeria is, how tribalistic the Yorubas is, yet their people have been attacked. Their people have been attacked and kidnapped. That is a big issue. Anything that do enter, that people's life are not safe. People go wrong, come out, and that is the way it is. If you watch this guy's analysis the other day, VDM, he brought maps. It's only southeast. It's only south. I showed you guys the video. It's only southeast that is free from this, this thing they are doing. They will come and carry school children, go. It's only southeast. Though some part of northern Enugu State, all those areas, we are having small things there. So, but it's only southeast. That is number one security. Meaning that southeast is the only place that is safe now in Nigeria. And they don't like it. That's why they leave the kidnappers in the forest and come to southeast and be chasing people up and down. Did you see that? Is it not sounding absurd in your ear? Yeah? With what is happening now, you don't expect to see any type of molestation, with the uniform people to the general public on the public space now. Even people are talking now what they did to Showore, the way they are pushing him. They say, oh, people are in the bandits are in the forest, kidnapping people. You cannot do anything. See the way you are pushing an armless person. People are making reference to it now. You see. So that is it. Let's watch this clip. It's a short clip. Let's see what the Niger Delta, some of them are saying concerning the joining of Biafra. Let's go.
You see, once you are not Hausa, you are not Yoruba. You are Igbo. That is how they see you. To the Hausa man, anybody that is not Yoruba is Igbo. And to the Yoruba man, anyone that is not Hausa is Igbo. So the earlier Niger Delta understands this truth and joins the Igbos to cry for a division, the better it will be for us. Because one day you go fall, enter their hand. You go explain tire. And at that time, I go realize. Say, who no be Hausa, no be Yoruba, na Igbo. They belong to one family. Wetin don't spoil. Country don't spoil. And they say, it can still work if we have the right leaders. Who are the right leaders? You think everybody that entered into politics entered there the way they are today? Some of them entered with good intention, but the system changed them. The people that were standing up for you on the matter of electoral reform, what happened? Did they not withdraw? Because of selfish interest. Country don't spoil. And they say if we can only come together and elect the right leaders, the only coming together that this country needs is the coming together to demand division. You think these problems are going to disappear? Wait, it don't spoil, don't spoil.
All right, having said that, we are going to give you more, clip to that. Yes, people are getting their brain back because what happened during the Civil War, they thought that it is bed of roses, that this other side, Southeast, is gone. So, but with what is happening now, the table is turning. And all over the world, Southeasterners are not resting. This fight is not for children. We are very serious about that. Okay? So let's hear from Niger Delta people more. When we come back, I'm going to show you something. And after that, we are going to conclude.
Love no day. The likeness no day. The our people steady. It no go well. The hatred is too big. So when Biafra say they won't go their own, they get reason to talk. IPOB say they won't do their own, they get reason to talk. East said they won't do their own, they get reason to talk. Because they didn't see love and likeness. So they get the reason to talk. The love need the show. The unity need the show. So they get the reason to say we no one day again. It is said to put in the color for prison go solve matter. It didn't solve matter. Rather, it increase. It increase, it scatter things. Make what I do releasing the color. He no do anything. Bumi they free, they carry escort to the waka. Man where they head bandits, man where they speak for bandits, man where they speak for kidnappers. If they busy, escort to the follow.
We do one nature, one nature. It will be far better. I have said it countless times that one Nigeria is killing Nigeria, one Nigeria is consuming Nigeria. The only people who are still shouting for this one Nigeria are this criminal element, these few greedy politicians, all takers who have taken upon themselves to destroy this very country. I will allow you people to see the video so that you watch it. They are the only one calling for one Nigeria, and the British is using them. You know how? You know why? Because they will steal the money. They will steal the money.
This is the Republic of Biafra map. When you look into the map, you will see the Igala, Idoma, Enugu, Ebonyi, Anambra, Edo, Delta, Imo, Abia, Rivers, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River states.
So without missing words, I have something I want to show you guys to spice up your day.
Nigeria fought a brutal civil war to keep the country one. But the same man who led that war, he helped break another country apart. Let's talk about General Yakubu Gowon for a minute. In 1967, the eastern region of Nigeria declared itself independent Republic of Biafra. Gowon's response was swift and brutal, a 30-month genocidal war that killed an estimated over 3 million people, mostly through starvation and conflict ensued. His justification, national unity. One Nigeria, indivisible, non-negotiable. They will usually tell you the unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. They are willing to do anything to make sure Nigeria stays as one. Even if everybody in it has to die, let it stay as one. Secession, according to him, was illegal, immoral, and a threat to the fabric of the nation. But fast forward to 1971, just less than 1 year after the brutal killing of Igbo people. East Pakistan, a region culturally, linguistically, and geographically separate from West Pakistan, declared independence after a genocide that killed around 3 million people. They called themselves a new name, Bangladesh. India intervened with their military. Pakistan surrendered. And on the 18th of April 1972, at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London, Bangladesh was formally admitted as member of Commonwealth of Nations. Guess what? Gowon was there. General Yakubu Gowon, Nigeria under his leadership supported the independence of Bangladesh. The same man who told Biafrans their self-determination was a crime, voted, welcomed brand new breakaway nation into the international community. Now people who like to support nonsense will say, it's different now. Bangladesh faced a genocide by its own central Pakistani government. Really? What did Biafrans face from Nigeria? Biafra made exact same argument. They pointed to 1966 pogroms in the north. They pointed to earlier pogroms in 1925, in 1945, in 1952. Before independence, northern Nigeria, where thousands of Igbo people were massacred. That was the reason why General Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu met with General Yakubu Gowon in Ghana, where they reached an accord to say, govern your region while I govern my region. And they came back home only for this same Gowon to renege on the agreement, leading the Eastern Assembly to vote in favor of secession from Nigeria. Today you have different stories being peddled. Some will say it was Igbo people that were the aggressors. The moment the Igbo declared this independence, shots were fired in Gakem by Nigerian military forces. They came out fully with aggression to crush what they called rebels. They tagged these people who sought self-determination as rebels. But you can see here that Gowon supported Bangladesh to break away from Pakistan.
Daily Times had taken the position that Bangladesh was a result of secession, and Nigeria had fought a civil war to prevent secession, which was a very valid point of view. So my meeting with General Gowon, I tried to persuade him by telling him that all Commonwealth governments had agreed to recognize Bangladesh, and Commonwealth decisions were taken by consensus, and consensus meant that anybody who disagreed would be prepared to live with the majority position without necessarily supporting the position. And General Gowon eventually said to me, all right, we will, if all the rest of the Commonwealth agreed to recognize Bangladesh, Nigeria would go along, but not to support it, but we will live with it.
So the big question isn't whether Bangladesh deserved independence. They absolutely did. The question is, why did the suffering of the people of Bangladesh justify a new nation, but the killings and suffering of Biafrans did not justify the establishment of a new nation? History isn't always clean, and geopolitics is rarely about principles. It's about interest. Gowon's Nigeria needed to stay whole so that he can extract oil and give to Britain. Bangladesh's independence didn't threaten him at all. It didn't concern him. But if you're going to stand on the world stage and support the right of a people to break away or to break free from the government that brutalizes them, you don't get to pretend you never use that same brutality to stop your own people from doing the exact same thing. That is not strategy, and that is not consistency. It is hypocrisy. And what we do on a Cultural Forum, which is an intellectual platform, is to dig up such history so that a thought-provoking people, a generation that is ready to sit down and think, can interrogate these truths and know whether they are consistent or not. Subscribe to a Cultural Forum. History that they don't teach you in school is usually taught here. Drop your thoughts below. Was Gowon right or wrong, or just being political as always? Remember, he was quoted as recently saying that they did not kill any people in the southeast, that the bullets that were fired in Igbo land only got to palm trees. That is the same man we have just discussed here.
The war aim of Biafra is purely to prevent ourselves being slaughtered, nothing more. We haven't got the sophisticated war aim of Nigeria to conquer, to overrun, to do something or the other. For us, merely to prevent. And if anybody is going to judge our success and failure in this war, it will have to depend on how much we have prevented the enemy from killing us.
There are two things plaguing them in the zoo: lies and deceit. If not for the coming of IPOB, of Radio Biafra, all of you would have lived and died in the ignorance that Ojukwu caused a war. That's what they were writing. Britain helped them to write it. Ojukwu was a rebel, a secessionist, because we had no media. That is why they're paying Facebook billions upon billions of US dollars to stop this truth from coming out. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Gowon is alive, go and ask him. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Ojukwu went and negotiated restructuring with you in Aburi. You came back, Britain told you not to agree because Britain realized that all the component units of Britain knows that if you go back to regionalism, you have economic growth. The country will do very well. But Britain doesn't want it. That was why they even instigated the Nzogwu coup, so-called Nzogwu coup, saying they will bring Awolowo to become the head of state. They knew what was going to happen. They wanted to truncate the economic miracle of Dr. Michael Opara. What I'm telling you are fast. Go and investigate for yourself. In the East, you had the fastest growing economy in the whole world, over 40% every year. In the West, Awolowo was performing his own miracle as well. Even in the North, Ahmadu Bello and Tafawa Balewa were doing very well. You had all those massive industries in the North. You even had Alamajiris that were employed in the North, meaningfully employed, gainfully employed. They were all doing very well. Britain said, no, for us to control these people, we need to impoverish them. Let us introduce this war. There was a coup by Nzogwu. And after that, there was the massacre of, as usual, massacre of our people in the North. Ojukwu said, I have to secure my land and my people. They said, no, let's go to Aburi to discuss it. Ojukwu went to Aburi and agreed restructuring. That's something now you're asking for. To tell you how foolish Nigerians are. They're very foolish. That same nonsense you're asking for now was discussed many years ago. Ojukwu sat down in Aburi with Gowon and decided that regionalism was the best way forward, restructuring, going back to who you were, 1963 Constitution, 1960-1963 Constitution. Be on your own and pay tax to the central government, as they have in America, as they have even in Britain. Britain, you have Scotland that is almost independent, Wales, the same thing, everybody is free, but Britain doesn't want the same thing they're enjoying to happen in Nigeria. Why? Ask yourself that question. Anybody telling you about one Nigeria is your enemy? I'll prove it to you now. Ojukwu negotiated devolution, regionalism. The North will be on their own, the West on their own, even Middle Belt on their, Midwest on their own, and then the East on their own. It's the same one Nigeria. On their way to the airport, before they boarded the aircraft, a call came from Lagos, from the British High Commissioner in Lagos to Gowon, telling Gowon not to agree. After having signed the agreement, that same Gowon you're looking at today, God kept me alive so that he can witness the destruction he will bring upon that very zoo called Nigeria. Gowon said no. Do you know all the journalists in Nigeria, none of them have ever gone to Gowon to ask him, why did he say no to Aburi? Aburi was restructuring. None of those agitating for restructuring right now has ever gone to Gowon or gone to Nigeria to say, but Ojukwu negotiated restructuring. What happened? They came back and they said no. Ojukwu said, okay, so you want to continue to kill my people all over the place? No. Because of that, I'll declare Biafra. Today, they have brainwashed all of you with the perverse notion and thinking that somehow Ojukwu is responsible for causing a war, when opposite is the case. If not now, that after many years of hammering on this very topic, it has now sunk into the skull of the people that Gowon was the aggressor, not Ojukwu. That's how Nigeria is, always blaming the victim. And we lost over 5 million people during that very genocidal war. They killed over 5 million Biafrans. They wanted to wipe us away from the face of this very earth. But we survived it, and we are here today. Those they gave birth to, that have come. And this time with a wrath that you cannot even begin to imagine.
During the war, the North and the West teamed up to fight us. Today, again, the North and the West teaming up. And which is why if you go through all the very important, sensitive posts in the country, Igbo man is not in any of them. No. It's all right. The God who has always led us, directed us, will one day, someday vindicate us. Whatever it is we're entitled to in this country, I think God will give it to us. I believe so. Even if our brothers deny us that. People who are afraid of competition will tell you that somebody wants to dominate them. Nobody is dominating you. The last thing the Igbo man will do is to dominate anybody. He's not interested in that. An Igbo man finds himself in Kaura Namoda. He wants to settle down. He ends up marrying a woman from Kaura Namoda. I mean, is there anything criminal about it? That you fell in love with a native girl and you married her. Is there anything wrong with that? I have 5 sons. One of my sons is married to a Yoruba girl. He brought her to the house and I said, hey, listen, do you love my son? Yes, I do. Yeah, come on. And we took our drums to Yoruba land. It was incredible. Everybody was dancing. This chief asked her. Right. He's married to... A lot of us are sick. Let's just conclude that way, right? Femi Fanika is married to an Igbo girl. So he understands us. His father was a very close friend of Zik. I can tell you that. And he knows a lot about our history. So when he talks, I want to listen to him. I've talked about politics, which I don't like, by the way, but I am compelled to, because when people deliberately organize themselves into groups that exist purely to distort facts, people like us are bound to make statements to counter them. I mentioned something earlier. I said, if you hurt an Igbo man once in politics, it's not likely ever to give you a second chance to hurt him again. There's a book called The School for Scandal by Richard Brinsley Sheridan. A character there is Lady Sneawell. There's a very popular quotation from that woman that anybody who read that book will always remember. Wounded at the early stage of my youth by the poison tongue of slander, I have ever since known no joy beyond reducing others to the level of my own enjoyed reputation. By the School for Scandal, let's never. All right. So if you apply it to the political philosophy of the Igbo man, you will know why he doesn't take too kindly to perfidy in politics, treachery in politics, even though it is supposed to be an ingredient of diplomacy. It is not for the Igbo man. The Igbo man believes in perseverance. He believes in hard work. He believes that God gave him power to exercise dominion over his environment. The Igbo man wants competition. In every part of the world you find the Igbo man, he is immensely successful. That is something that you can't counter. Go to any part of the world. I mean, there are some of them, by the way, who, like you know, of like criminal elements. But if you look at our Lord Jesus Christ, he had 12 apostles. One of them sold him. So you will always have people who are non-conformists who want to cut corners and all that. But that's by the way.
So
Well, let's start, with your thoughts on the comments made by General Yakubu Gowon that the Nigerian Civil War was fought to keep the country together and that it was not really about defeating any part of the country. What do you make about this? What do you make over this?
Well, first of all, we must understand that war in itself is a display of anarchy. When you talk about war, that is lawlessness at its peak. So when you say you are fighting war to keep Nigeria one, no. You fought the war as a manifestation of your incompetence in the management of the crisis that was then part of Nigerian history. And let me explain what I mean. Before independence, the colonial power, Britain, they kind of brainwashed the Nigerian people to maintain their ethnic cleavages. And they needed to make Nigerians live in that disunity so that they could continue their colonization against Nigeria. So they made the North, for instance, to believe that being educationally disadvantaged, they should not rush into independence because of the likelihood that they will be dominated by the more advanced southern Nigeria. And the North bought into that. And that was why we were delayed from 1954 to 1960. But the actual thing is that Britain just wanted more time to dominate Nigeria. So after independence, that mindset that the South is likely to dominate them remained. And the North was always at every slightest chance, reminding the South that we did not intend to be one country with you because we are suspecting your domination. But the 1966 military coup, pure military coup, has nothing to do with ethnicity or anything, even though people who organized it were predominantly from one ethnic group. But that reinforced the belief by the North that these people, we said it, they want to dominate us. And then they carried out a revenge coup in 1966 July, which was meant actually to separate from Nigeria, not to keep Nigeria one. But the Britain also reminded them that the resources are in the East. So if you leave Nigeria, we are going to support the East. So you better run now that you have acquired power to maintain Nigeria as one. And that made them to have a rethink. And by that time, a lot of Igbos, for instance, have been killed during the pogrom, during the massacre. So there was an entrenched suspicion between the ethnic groups. And this led them to go to Aburi for a conference, and they reached agreement. And it was still Gowon who came back and reneged on the agreement, which inevitably led to the bitter war. And after the war, Gowon declared again, no victor, no vanquished, and promised to reconcile, rehabilitate, and reconstruct the Southeast, which he failed again to do. So all the available opportunities for him to make Nigeria one and consolidate that unity, he was not able to do. But let us make one point clear, that after a while, when he himself was thrown away by some of those his colleagues, that was when maybe he recognized that what happened in 1966 was a military coup and not any ethnic coup, because he himself was thrown away by the same military people. I wonder which terminology we use to describe the ones who threw him away. But one thing is clear. After that, it looks as if he went into theology, had a rebirth, and he came back and genuinely went through our Southeast apologizing and asking for forgiveness for his role in the Civil War. And we know that though the Southeast has been marginalized and ill-treated in that war, which was not caused by them, we know that Gowon has tried to make certain types of penance. We should forgive each other because hostilities need not last forever. So I can submit respectfully that ethnic chauvinism, the youthful exuberance of the military young chaps that took over government, who were actually very impressionable at that age, their inability to manage the crisis contributed in the disunity that resulted in the Civil War. We must learn to forget and to forgive so that we will move ahead as one united Nigeria. I remember what Ojukwu said when he came back from exile, he said, we have fought one civil war. We don't need to fight another one. That he's going to go to war to fight if Nigeria is ever threatened again. And I stand by that. Nigeria being the hope of the black man. Nigeria being the hope of Africa. Nigeria being blessed and in our enlightened self-interest. The capabilities and blessings of Nigeria will be better harnessed if we come together, live together under one united Nigeria. Nigeria based on equity, unity, peace, and justice. Nigeria will achieve its aims. I support the opinion that we should move ahead now as one united Nigeria, and I'm willing to fight if Nigeria is threatened.
Yes, viewers, I thank you for being with me. That is not something that you leave for me alone. You do your own part by sharing, dropping your comments, let people know what you think. Let's know if we are on the right track, if what we are saying is in order. Because what I'm saying is what I see, and I don't need anybody's permission to say what I want to say. That is it. Well, I am still Chinedu till I come your way next time.